Okay, let's dive in. You've almost certainly seen it, right? Flooding your feed, especially TikTok and places like that.
Oh, yeah.
This whole idea of being the main character.
It's huge. It's like this massive online concept.
Totally. And maybe you've scrolled past, maybe you've even kind of wondered, what is this really about?
It's become such a shorthand, hasn't it? This like desire to see your own life feel a bit more cinematic, romanticized.
Exactly that. And for this deep dive, we're actually unpacking a perspective that takes, well, a really interesting look at that common idea.
Hmm.
Our source today is a YouTube video. It's by Simonne, and the title is How to Be the Main Character Because You're Doing It Wrong.
Right. And our mission here really is to get past the sort of trends, the aesthetic, the buying stuff.
Yeah.
Because the source argues that popular take. It
Yeah.
kind of misses the whole point completely.
Right. It suggests it's not about, like, performing or chasing external things. The real meaning, according to this video, is much deeper, more internal.
So we want to unpack their argument, their critique, and then kind of dig into the practical steps they suggest for actually feeling like the center of your own life.
And it's good to remember this is, it's one person's perspective shared online, a reflection on this big cultural thing that's happening.
Definitely. A personal take.
So where do they start? Well, with what I thought was a pretty big aha moment, like right at the beginning. They basically say, look, you already are the main character.
Ah, okay.
Why? Simple. It's your life.
That's the key reframing, isn't it? It
Yep.
shifts the whole question. It's not, how do I become one?
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, if I am the main character, why don't I feel like it?
Exactly. Which is crucial.
Yeah.
Because if you already are, then the problem isn't getting some outside status.
Right.
And that's where they really push back against the, the superficial stuff. It's not about buying a specific top or trying really hard to be quirky or mimicking someone else's vibe.
No.
Mm.
That popular view, they argue, just bypasses the real issue entirely.
And what's the real issue, according to them?
Well, what's fascinating is they connect this whole trend, this fascination, to something deeper, like a desire maybe to feel important or unique.
Or maybe just to romanticize a life that feels a bit boring or, not quite stacking up to the online perfection we see.
Exactly. That feeling of needing to add some sparkle because maybe the day-to-day feels a bit mundane.
Okay, so if chasing trends and aesthetics isn't the answer,
Yeah.
what is? The source offers, like, several key ideas, right? Principles for actually cultivating that feeling internally.
Yeah, they lay out a different path, a more inward path. And the first big one they talk about is awareness.
Awareness. Okay, awareness of what exactly?
It's actually pretty fundamental. It's about being conscious. Conscious that you're alive, that you're breathing, that you exist right now, in this moment.
And they connect that awareness to, like, control, don't they? Agency.
They do. The idea that you are actually in control of most things happening to you. Now, they do add a caveat, acknowledging obviously that's not true for everyone in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
Life circumstances, privilege, that all plays a role.
Sure, that's important.
But for many people, they emphasize recognizing the control you do have over your choices, your reactions. It's like saying you're not just being passively swept along, you have agency.
You a steering wheel.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And building on that, maybe explaining why we feel disconnected sometimes, is the second principle. Presence.
Yeah, and this is huge for the source. They see this as a core reason why people don't feel like the main character. Lack of presence.
And the main culprit they point to seems pretty obvious in today's world.
Our phones, our devices.
Right. Too much time just lost in the digital world.
Exactly. Scrolling, clicking, existing more online than in the actual physical world around us.
And how does that stop you feeling like the main character?
Well, think about it. If you're constantly immersed in other people's curated lives or just endless digital noise.
You're not really paying attention to your own life.
Precisely.
Mhm.
So the source argues that cultivating presence, really being here, helps you slow down. It lets you actually notice and appreciate the details of your own experience, your surroundings, how you feel physically, mentally, not just what's flashing on a screen.
And they suggest practical things too, like meditation.
Yep. Meditation gets a mention as a tool, a way to practice being present.
And they contrast this deep presence thing with, like, the quick fixes, right?
Totally. Buying that cool jacket or making the perfect playlist might give you a little buzz, a temporary main character moment.
But it fades.
It fades. The source is clear. That lasting feeling comes from the inside, from awareness, presence, genuinely appreciating yourself, being authentic, and taking that control we talked about.
Okay, which leads nicely into their third point, I think, meaning attachment. This sounds interesting.
It really is. It's about looking at where you put your emotional energy, where you assign importance.
Like who or what gets the spotlight in your mind?
Exactly. They use a really relatable example, having a crush
Ah,
and making that person the main character in your life. You put them on this massive pedestal, analyze everything they do or don't do.
and suddenly you feel like the side character in your own story.
Right. Because you've given them all the meaning, all the importance.
And the source connects this to self-worth, doesn't it? Like, if you're always elevating people who maybe don't value you back or aren't worth that energy.
You're automatically deprioritizing yourself. You're not putting yourself on that pedestal where, frankly, you belong in your own life story.
They had a funny example for this too, didn't they? Something about...
Edward Cullen, yes.
Yeah.
Like being in a relationship and making your partner the absolute dazzling center of everything while you fade into the background. It's vivid.
It definitely paints a picture.
Okay, so from who you give meaning to, they pivot to who you actually are. Principle number 4, authenticity.
Yeah. Living your truth. Being unapologetically you.
And they're pretty critical of just trying to fit in, right? Very. The source basically says conforming, trying to meet someone else's standards or expectations, stops you from being you. And they actually call it boring.
Okay.
If you're just a copy, how can you be the unique lead?
Yeah.
Their point is that real main character energy you see in some people. It's not an act.
What is it then?
It's just them being themselves,
Yeah.
doing what they want, not excessively worrying about judgment, embracing their quirks.
Just owning it.
Exactly. But they're realistic, too. They acknowledge it's hard. Being truly authentic can feel scary.
Because you might not be accepted.
Yeah, that fear of rejection is real.
Which feels like a perfect setup for the next principle they talk about, fearlessness.
Because the source connects facing your fears directly to growth. You have to do things that scare you, things that make you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because that's where growth happens, outside the comfort zone.
Like in any good story, right?
Yeah.
The main character has to face challenges. They step into the unknown, maybe they fail, maybe they succeed, but they change, they develop.
Precisely. Character development doesn't happen when everything's easy and safe.
Did they give an example for this one?
They did.
Yeah.
They mentioned auditioning for X Factor even though they got kicked out. The point wasn't winning. It was doing the scary thing, putting themselves out there. That's the growth.
Okay, so we have awareness, presence, meaning attachment, authenticity, fearlessness. These are big internal shifts. But the source also zooms out a bit, right? Looking at life more broadly,
Yeah. They introduced this idea of life as a journey.
which implies...
Acceptance. Accepting where you are right now. Seeing it as just one chapter, not the whole book, not the final destination.
And that connects back to presence again, I guess.
Totally. Slow down, be in this chapter, take it day by day.
It sounds like it relieves some pressure, too.
Huge pressure. You don't need it all figured out. Not now, maybe not even by age 80, the source jokes. And that's okay. It's a process, a journey.
That's quite freeing. And finally, they also mentioned some, like, specific behaviors or actions they associate with living as the main character.
Yeah, some practical everyday things like not scrolling social media for hours on end.
Back to presence again.
Exactly. Also, just being a good person. Being kind. Simple, but important.
And they hammered home the point about not caring too much what others think, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Reiterating that authenticity piece. Their take is pretty blunt.
Yeah.
Honestly, most people are way more wrapped up in their own lives than they are in judging yours.
That's probably true, actually.
And related to that, focus on your stuff,
Yeah.
your goals, your path. Don't get bogged down comparing or obsessing over what everyone else is doing.
They use that quote, right? Winners focus on winning.
Losers focus on winners.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes on your own game.
Okay, so pulling it all together from this source, the big takeaway really seems to be forget the superficial trend.
Right.
Being the main character isn't about buying things or performing a role. It's internal.
It's about cultivating these states, like awareness, real presence,
Authenticity, deciding where you place meaning, especially putting yourself first.
embracing fear to grow, and just focusing on your own journey, your own actions, being kind.
Yeah. And understanding these ideas, these principles from the source, it really can shift how you think about it, can't it?
Totally. Instead of chasing some external validation, some fleeting trend.
You can focus on building this deeper sense of agency, appreciating the life you already have.
Because, like the source keeps saying, you are the main character. It's your story unfolding right now.
And the video ends on this really lovely, almost poetic note, doesn't it? Looking at the sky, feeling the wonder of life.
Yeah, wondering what we did to deserve all this beauty. And then it lands on this final thought. If you really can do anything you put your mind to,
You just have to go for it.
you just have to go for it. It leaves you thinking, well, how could embracing these principles, presence, authenticity, fearlessness, how could that actually empower you to truly go for it in your own unique way?
Definitely something to chew on.